Hey everybody. So I want to talk about trades a little bit and specifically teams that I think could be very active on the trade market. Um, not just at the trade deadline, but throughout this entire season. I think there are teams right now that could be very active on the trade market. Quickly before we get to that, I just want to say if you're not yet a subscriber, please hit subscribe. As long as you're a fan of hockey and a fan of the NHL, I do videos on topics from around the league on a fairly regular basis. So hit that subscribe button and follow along. Thank you. So there are a number of teams that I think could be very active on the trade market. Even right now, not just as the season goes along, but right now. And normally we don't talk about trading that much until we get towards the trade deadline and teams really start making late season pushes and making a lot of moves. But we've already seen a fair number of trades this season. Obviously, Pittsburgh and LA, Arizona and Chicago, Edmonton and the Rangers. We've seen a fair number of trades already. Teams don't seem to be waiting around. Teams are making moves and they're showing a willingness to make moves on the market. Now, with these teams, I'm not saying that they're guaranteed to make a move or trade people or certain people. I'm just saying that their GM's phones are going to be ringing. They're going to be making phone calls. They're going to be accepting phone calls in some cases. They're going to be trying to do something. And if the right deal's not out there, they might just hold pat. A lot of these teams, well, some of these teams are good teams and not going to make any panic moves, but they're just going to be willing to listen and possibly able to make a deal. So here's my list of teams that I think will be pretty active, at least in discussing trades, if not making them. And right at the top of the list is the Philadelphia Flyers. I expect once a new GM is named and they figure out who the GM is going to be, I expect a fire sale in Philadelphia. They are going to be moving guys. Their season this year is getting close to being pretty much over. So I don't know if they're going to try and save this season or if they're just going to try and reload for next year. But I think you're going to see veteran players with value moved by Philadelphia. Guys, Wayne Simmons is, I would almost guarantee, is going to get traded this season. Jake Voracek, I think, could be moved out. Andrew McDonald, if the deal is out there, although he has a pretty awful contract. So he might be a tough one to move, but I would think Philly would want to move him, let some of their younger defensemen, play. McDonald hasn't even been playing all that much. Radko Gudas, I think, could get moved. I think a team, that would probably be a deal closer towards the trade deadline, but a team looking to shore up their defense could definitely make a deal for Gudas. Philly's going to be trying to do something with their goaltending. I expect a lot of moves with Philadelphia and some big time changes with the Flyers. Pittsburgh's already made a deal adding Tanner Pearson, but I don't think that's a blockbuster by any stretch of the imagination. As if you watched my video of discussing that particular trade, you would understand I wasn't a huge fan of that. But Pittsburgh, they're struggling right now. They are not in playoff position. They're have a much worse record than what they usually do, what they're used to, and they're a team that has never been afraid to make moves. The Pittsburgh is always one of the most active teams on the trade market, so I would not be surprised to see Pittsburgh make another trade or two this season and try and get something going in Pittsburgh to get them back into playoff position. Florida's had a very tough start to the year. They're under 500 right now. They have not been the team that people expected them to be. And Vincent Trocheck is out long term with that nasty leg injury. I would be honestly surprised if he returns at all this year. So that's a big hole up front. I would not be surprised to see Florida try and make a trade for a forward, particularly a center, just to try and A, get them playing better, and B, somewhat fill that hole that Trocheck's left. Although you're not going to get a player at the level of Vincent Trocheck on the trade market without giving a ton up, which I don't think Florida wants to do. But they could at least bring in somebody to as another center and try and do something to get this team jump started. Boston strictly because of the injuries. Boston is missing a massive number of players right now. Most of their defense is out injured. They're not going to make any panic moves because they're finding ways to win games even though all these players are out injured. But I think if the right deal is out there, Boston will absolutely pull the trigger on a move, either adding a defenseman or adding a scoring winger. I think both of those are moves that Boston would be willing to make and probably looking to make, but they're not going to overpay. They're not going to make a panic move because they're still winning even with all the injuries. Toronto, obviously the big name in Toronto is William Nylander. He has until tomorrow. He has until tomorrow for something to happen with Willie Nylander. So Toronto, I would think, is going to be looking to make a trade if they can't re-sign him. But the deadline is upon us. So something has to happen with Nylander, and it could very well be a trade. And also, I think Toronto's looking to add a defenseman. So if the right deal's out there for them to add a top 4 defenseman, I think Toronto will make it. So look for them to at least be talking with teams about making a deal. Edmonton's already made a trade this year, but they are underperforming yet again this season, much like they did last year, although they're not as bad this year as they were last year. Still, they're not in a playoff spot. They're very... they've been pretty disappointing so far. No bounce back year to this point for the Oilers, so... I would not be surprised to see at least one, if not multiple more trades for the Oilers in trying to get them into a playoff position this year. St. Louis, they're off to a horrendous start. Their season is borderline over if they don't turn it around in the next couple of weeks or so. They are in big trouble, as I talked about yesterday. So I would not at all be surprised to see some moves made by the Blues, either moving defensemen or trying to get more depth scoring in there. They're in trouble, and I would not be surprised to see them making moves. And then if they do continue to struggle, I would expect them to be sellers of certain players. But I think that they will be active on the trade market for most of this season. And lastly, LA is going to be big time sellers. They're going to be looking to dump contracts. They stink. They're in last place in the Western Conference. They're not going to be a playoff team this year. They're an old team. They're a team that needs a rebuild, and I just expect them to be selling off veteran players throughout this season. So those are teams that I think will be active on the trade market either right now or later in the year, but these are teams that are all going to be looking to make some sort of changes, whether it's adding guys to make their team better or if it's dumping guys off because they're out of it and they need to sell contracts and veteran large contracts and start the rebuild process. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media, check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support Off the Wall Hockey, the link to our Patreon as well as our merchandise store are both down in the description. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.